Did you know that Monday night is the first night of the month of Elul? I can tell that you're all fascinated. Why would I be mentioning this as though it is some sort of amazing thing? What does the month of Elul precede? The high holidays. So traditionally, when the month of Elul begins, that is when we begin preparing ourselves emotionally for all of the spiritual work that we will be doing over the Yomim Noraim, the days of awe. So we're gonna welcome in Rosh Chodesh, the new month. So if you could open up to your Shabbat program, we will read together in a moment. Okay. May it be your will, Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors, grant that this month bring us goodness and blessing, and bestow on us a long life, a life that is peaceful, a life that is good, a life that is blessed, a life with proper sustenance, a life with physical vitality, a life conscious of heaven's demands and wary of sin, a life free from shame and reproach, a life of abundance and honor, a life of love of Torah, conscious of heaven's demands, a life in which the worthy desires of our hearts are fulfilled. Amen. Rosh Chodesh Elul yihyeh bayom sheni haba aleinu v'al kol Yisrael tova. And together in English. The new month of Elul will begin on Monday night. May it hold blessings for us and for all the people Israel. May the Holy One bless this new month for us and for the entire people, the house of Israel, with life and peace, amen, joy and gladness, amen, deliverance and consolation, and let us say amen. Thank you. So friends, how have we been preparing for the high holidays over the last 2 months already? What have we been doing? Every single week. Just a little hint. We have been studying Musar for 8 weeks already, if you can believe it. And we have 4 more to go, if I did the math at all correctly, which I probably didn't. But this week's Musar value is generosity. And I think that is an excellent one to explore as we move into the month of Elul. There is so much to be generous about. So I want to tell you a story, a midrash that I really like. First, I'm going to get set up at the next thing I want to read. Okay, so this is a midrash I really like. I might have told it to you guys before, but it's still wonderful, so I'm telling it again. So there was a rabbi, and he was teaching the difference between heaven and hell. Somebody asked him, "Hey, Rabbi, what is this hell thing that everybody's been talking about?" And he said, "Hell is a banquet, a beautiful banquet set up with amazing food and wine and everything you could possibly want to eat." And the supplicant said, that doesn't sound so bad, Rabbi. And the rabbi said, "Hell is when your elbows are locked and you can't get the spoon to your mouth." I heard a rabbi once actually tell this story to a group of preschoolers, and they said, "Why don't you just use your mouth?" Okay, that was not part of the story. So hell is a place where you're an adult and you cannot eat the food with your mouth, and you also cannot get it to your mouth, and it's all in front of you, all splayed out so beautifully. And heaven is exactly the same, except everyone feeds the person across the way. So my arms don't work, but I can feed Richard here, and you can't feed, I can't feed myself, so you can feed me, right, Lois? And And then we might be broken in a way, right? Even in heaven, we're broken in a way. And yet, it doesn't matter, because the beauty is there's always someone who can offer us what we need. And likewise, we can always offer someone what they need. And I think that story exemplifies the spirit of generosity from its core. I'd like to read to you just a little bit from this book that I keep recommending you all get, Everyday Holiness by Alan Marinis, The Jewish Spiritual Path of Musar. So generosity. So this is what I want us to know. When we think about generosity, it often means only one thing in our mind, and I want to read this quote. So because we live in a money-centric culture, we tend to think of generosity only as a question of reaching into our wallets. But as with all soul traits, generosity is a quality of the soul, and so it can find expression in many ways. You can be generous with money and also with your time, your energy, and your possessions. The one who gives truma, a gift or a tithe kind of thing, gives because his or her heart is so inflamed with magnanimity, inflamed with magnanimity, that it would be painful not to give. And the heart finds a way to respond spontaneously, whether with money, time, materials, or in any other way. This sort of generosity is not defined by the kind of action you take or the amount you give, but the energy of the response itself. I am pointing to a spontaneous, open, trusting, voluntary, inspired internal overflow that erupts from the inner depths in response to the needs of or love for another. God is the model for this sort of giving. God needs nothing and yet gives abundantly. In this way, God is intrinsically a giver. A person can also be a giver by intrinsic nature. Most of us would need to train ourselves to reach this level of giving, but it is possible. Then being generous becomes who and what you are. What do you think of that? Inflamed with magnanimity. I don't know that I've ever in my life been inflamed with magnanimity. I'd like to aspire to that, though. So I'd like to just take a little bit of time. Our congregation has been going through a lot of changes. We've been moving, and now we're preparing for the high holidays, and there's just a lot of action. And I'd just like to take a little minute to share some moments of generosity that you have observed in your life, in your relationships, in this community. And I'd like for us to just have a little gratitude moment. So who wants to start us off as an act of generosity that you have observed? I can always count on you, Helen.
Well, I was actually thinking about this before you spoke. The generosity of all of you in helping, driving Ron, picking him up from dialysis, and what it meant to both of us. It was very generous and very loving, and thank you.
All right, excellent. So Helen actually jumped a step, because I think it's actually really hard also, not only to open our hearts and give generously, but also to accept generosity. And I think that because Helen and Ron have been so generous with all of us over the course of their lives, it might be, we can hold you up as a paragon of being able to accept generosity. There are a lot of us sitting here and a lot of us outside who simply can't ask and simply can't accept. And what we learn in Judaism is that even a person who received tzedakah, like monetary tzedakah, is obligated to give. And that's not a stringent idea. That's not a, you have to, we shame you kind of thing. It is a beauty to be able to give. It is enlivening. It helps us connect to each other in really deep and meaningful ways. And we want everyone to be able to have that opportunity, whether or not they're challenged themselves, since in essence, we are all challenged in some way and all need to both practice generosity and receiving generosity. So I'm wondering if anyone else has an example of either observing generosity or receiving generosity, giving.
So, to my mind, includes service, right? Yeah. So that, for example, Howard's willingness to take on the presidency again was an act of generosity towards all of us. Sunshine and Jennifer and all the people who moved us from the other building into this building was another act of generosity. The time, the effort, the physical effort, and the dedication to the synagogue, which was a gift to all of us. And we admire it and appreciate it and are grateful for it.
I planted him. That was exactly what, I can always count on Richard to say also exactly the thing that I wanted. So Fred, I'll get around to everyone.
I just wanted to say about the generosity that Stu does when he meets everybody at the front door, Stan. Yeah. When Stan stands at the front door, he gets here early, and he greets everybody coming in, and talks with them, says, come, welcome, and everything. It means so much to have someone greet you like that when you're coming into someplace, especially if this is the first time you've ever been there.
Thank you so much, Fred. All right, so Stan, your hand was up, so, he just said, oh, we're pointing to you. Oh, okay, here you go, go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Josie, this is my first time here. So this is a sort of extreme example, so I have a friend who passed away very suddenly of an aneurysm in his late 40s. And before that happened, about a month before, I had put out an email or a note on Facebook asking if anybody had contacts at universities in STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, I forget what the M is, math. Because there were some incredible young women from Afghanistan who were really seeking to come to the US and move on with their lives and study STEM. And I put this out, and I have like 4,000 friends on Facebook. And one friend responded, and that was my friend Pierre. And he took the time to make a link with a faculty member at a university. And that one link that he made, that few minutes, has led to, with ripple effects, 4 young women from Afghanistan being able to study in the US. And it'll probably lead to more. And so it was just literally 3 minutes of his time that has changed the lives of some really incredible people.
And may your friend's memory always be remembered for a blessing. Do we have one more hand? Go ahead.
I'm Marty Perlman. This is my wife, Esther. And we're new to, we just came tonight. And one thing I wanted to share was my mother was a complainer. And one of the things, her favorite complaint was about my father not making enough money. And yet, she had her little pushka on the kitchen shelf, and she would put her spare change in. And when my father brought home his money, she had her little envelopes that she put money in, and she would put a few for each charity, and she would send, even if it was only $10 or $5, she would send away. And her point was that, I thought we had nothing, and yet here she was giving money to these charities.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Marty. Don, you're our last.
When I think of generosity, when I think of generosity, a lot of you that Sandy, my wife, is not doing well with very bad osteoporosis and osteoarthritis, and is having a hip replacement at the end of this year. So we're all praying. I'm praying for that, and hope all of you are too. But she often brings up the temple as one of the reasons that she's doing better now, because of the number of calls she gets, including the rabbi, the number of rides we get, just the food delivered. It's really delivered. It's made a major difference. So this temple is a major source of generosity that we'll never forget.
Tell Sandy that we send our love. Yeah? I hope so too. So I don't know about you, but I feel kind of my heart is more open than perhaps it was after listening to so many stories of giving and receiving. And I think just reminding ourselves sometimes that this is what life is about makes it easier for us to feel this spontaneous, open, trusting, voluntary, inspired internal overflow that erupts from the inner depth in response to the needs of or love for another. So let us just conclude by reading together the couple sentences on gratitude in the beginning of the Shabbat program. Okay, ready? Gifts given with the express purpose of thawing a frozen heart will in time cause fear to melt away and trust to grow. Each act of generosity works to pry open the heart a little, like clearing a blocked stream one pebble at a time. The flow of spontaneity is then freed to follow. Therein lies some of the magic of generosity. It rewards all. May it be so. Amen.